Good evening guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where by now you guys probably have noticed something. If you're getting 2 videos in one day from me, it means one of 2 things. Either things are going really well at Manchester United, or they're going really badly. And certainly in the last 24 hours, I would say it's been going really badly, particularly on the back of that game against Newcastle, where, as we said this morning, the structure was not good enough. Victor Lindelof and Ugarte in midfield created a big problem. Manchester United couldn't play out from the back and lost the game. We spoke about that a lot in this morning's video. But what we didn't do was actually offer solutions. So that's the plan for this video. So before we can discuss actual solutions, we need to figure out the intentions and the plan behind what Ruben Amorim is doing. Why is he moving that centre-back into midfield in the first place? Because this is something that he's done a lot. I warned you guys about this before Amorim even took charge of one game at Manchester United. Now that's not me saying I told you so, that's me going, this is clearly something that Ruben Amorim wants to do. He wants to centre-back in midfield. So the question is why? What is his plan? Well, let's take a look. The middle centre-back, as we've discussed, moves into midfield. The 2 wider centre-backs drop either side of the goalkeeper like this, and the 2 wing-backs move into a deeper position. One of the midfielders comes a little bit deeper. We form our double pivot here, and then the other midfielder sorts of floats in front of them. So why is Ruben Amorim doing this? He has been persistent with this, with Sporting and also Manchester United. What is he trying to achieve? Sort of artificial transitions. So an artificial transition, a term that is used a fair amount these days, probably too much, is a team trying to take a position like this, where it's actually slow and initially structured, and trying to get the ball up into this position here, into a situation that looks like a counter-attack, with space to attack, and players able to carry the ball forward. So this is what Ruben Amorim is trying to do, and this is the shape that he is using to try and do it. So what is his thinking here? Well, actually, there is a logic, and that's the first thing that I want to point out. There is a logic behind what Ruben Amorim is doing. I've seen a lot of people saying he's lost his mind. What is the point in moving the centre-back in there? But I do know why he does it. I know the understanding. So let's take a look at it. The centre-back starts in this position here and then moves into midfield. If he moves into the midfield there, that means the striker is going to drop a little bit deeper. He's not going to play as high as he would if the centre-back was in this position. So when the centre-back moves higher, the opposition striker drops a little bit deeper. Now, if the opposition striker has dropped a little bit deeper, that means our 2 wider centre-backs, this player here and this player here, have a little bit more time and space. So these 2 can receive the ball like that. However, as always, the opposition will react. They will not want our 2 centre-backs to have more time on the ball. So what they do is move their wingers a little bit higher. So this player here comes higher onto our centre-back here, and this player here comes higher onto the centre-back. Now if you look, our full-back over here and our full-back over here, or they're actually wing-backs, but they're now in a full-back position, they now have time. Well, once again, the opposition will not let that happen. So we will now see the opposition trying to be aggressive. Full-back on this side, coming higher to connect to the wing-back, and the full-back on the far side doing something similar. So we can now see that Manchester United don't have obvious passing options in the first phase, because we can't play to the 2 centre-backs, we can't play to this middle centre-back, and we can't play to the 2 wing-backs. We also can't play into midfield because the opposition will be aggressive with their press. However, whilst we may now not have natural options in the first phase, players that we can play the ball short to, we do have something going on up here now which is quite interesting. You see, because our wing-backs have dropped deeper, we've drawn the opposition full-backs out of position on both sides of the pitch. This means that if United can find a way to get the ball forward, our 2 inside 10s, this player here and this player here, can actually get at that opposition defence. We are talking about a 10 here, which could be a winger profile, attacking a centre-back. That is what Ruben Amorim is trying to do. He's trying to pull the opposition onto Manchester United and then pin those players back over there to get that space in between. This space in here for Manchester United players to pick the ball up and attack. The problem is, right now, it's too rigid. There's no rotations in the first phase, so it's really easy for the opposition to block. We don't really have players that we can go long to because there's not really enough of them. We have players in these positions that aren't the right profile to receive the ball, Lindelof and Ugarte, or could be Maguire, it could be De Ligt, it could be Casemiro even is the midfielder. It creates a bit of a problem. Now, because we have so much of a problem in the first phase, we start to see other players dropping deeper, so we can't play the ball in there. So suddenly this inside forward will come a little bit deeper to try and give us that extra option. The problem is we're sort of trapping ourselves. You remember when you were young and you were being taught how to play football, your coaches would always say, don't be sheep, don't chase the ball. And the sheep actually comes in handy for once. You know, don't be sheep. Don't all rush towards the ball and crowd up in one area of the pitch. You need to create space by moving away from the ball. United suddenly aren't doing that. You can see it here. There's so many players in the deep build-up phase, but it's almost too many. We are blocking each other. So one player like this can actually take out two opposition players. So two Manchester United players here are taken out by just one pressing forward. We're dropping too many players deep, which makes it really difficult to play through the first phase. But also, because we've dropped so many players deep, when we go long, there's no one up here to actually attack the space. So we know Amorim's idea: draw people onto us, pin them back, create that space in the middle. We just need to find a different way of executing this. So in order for Ruben Amorim to achieve this, a lot of people would have you believe that he has to completely rip the plan up and start again. Manchester United should not play the 3-4-3 or the 3-4-2-1 because it's just not going to work. But that's not actually true. You see, if we reset Manchester United into the 3-4-3 like this, we can start in this initial shape on paper, in theory, but actually on goal kicks, we can achieve what Ruben Amorim is trying to achieve, but we can get players in more natural positions and carry more of an attacking threat. The question is, how? Well, I'll tell you the answer. First of all, we need to use our ball-playing goalkeeper. Andre Onana is not necessarily the best shot stopper in the world. I think we've seen that in recent weeks. But what he is traditionally is a strong ball-playing goalkeeper. So we need to use that more. We need to change how we use our centre-backs. Don't put a centre-back in midfield because you're setting them up for failure. It's too difficult. And we also need to use our wing-backs just a little bit differently to pin the opposition back, to give us more space to play in the deeper phase, and we can go from there. So let's take a look at how this works. It's going to start off with Onana in goal, moving into this position here. Now, don't worry, this isn't something mental to suggest. Football teams do this. You can see Liverpool literally did it at the weekend. You can use your goalkeeper in this position. It's not a problem, particularly when they're comfortable on the ball like Onana. What we can then do is drop our central centre-back here. Rather than moving him up into midfield, he can now drop deeper into this right centre-back zone. So when he receives the ball, he is a player that now has time. Lovely. Everything's in front of him. He can get his head up. He can have a look. He's not playing with his back to goal. He doesn't need to be Frankie de Jong in the middle. He can just be a centre-back. That's lovely. This works, though, particularly well because we normally play Mazraoui in this position here. So what he can actually now naturally do is just go out there and play right back. Lenny Yoro on this side, not quite as natural, but he can come into this left back position. So the first thing we are doing is creating a back four. This is something that Ruben Amorim likes to do on goal kicks. So we have still created this back four. We've just moved players into more comfortable positions. Mazraoui at fullback, centre-back at centre-back, and a centre-back at fullback. Granted, that last one isn't perfect, but it's still better than a centre-back in midfield. So what is this going to do? It's going to draw the opposition onto us like this. But you can see the opposition don't actually naturally have enough players to press United in this moment because United are building with 4, the opposition are pressing with 3. So there's every chance they perhaps come up with an extra player. So what United need to do now is find short passing options. These 4 alone are not enough. We do need some support from our central midfielders, and that's what we're going to do now. We're going to drop our 2 central midfielders into this position here, a position which is very familiar. But the important thing now is we haven't got a centre-back playing there, we've got a central midfielder. That could be Bruno Fernandes, it could be Christian Eriksen. Again, we do have to look at the squad. We probably still don't possess the perfect profile for this role. Perhaps Kobbie Mainoo could do a good job, but it's still better than a centre-back. It's still better than Harry Maguire, De Ligt, or Lindelof receiving the ball in these positions. These 2 are more natural. But the thing you will notice is that we haven't spoken about the wing-backs yet. Previously, our wing-backs were dropping into these full-back zones here, but now they don't need to, because we've already got a player there. We've got Lenny Yoro on this side, and we've got Mazraoui on the far side. So our wing-backs are not needed so deep. Instead, what they can do is go the other way, pin the opposition back. Our wing-backs can fly forward like this, take higher starting positions in these areas here. This would also allow us to change the profile that we play there. We wouldn't need a fullback or a first phase specialist. These could actually now potentially become wingers because of the new starting positions. We're still using the same formation, we're just changing starting positions and we are adjusting the roles of the players. Now the great thing about this is because we have pushed the wing-backs further forward, it means that the inside forwards can still drop deeper to overload the midfield if they want to, but we're still not dropping too many players deep because we've still got the wing-backs high and hopefully at least one of the inside forwards. So previously we only had 2 players high in this position, now we've got 4. We are much more threatening if we just change the roles and the starting positions of some of these players. And you know, these high players can still drop deep, they can still arrive into space and take the opposition. In fact, I would encourage them to do so. This would make Manchester United more rotational. And that's the other benefit of this change. When you've got, let's say, Lindelof in here and Ugarte, they're restricted on how many different zones they can go into, because Lindelof certainly doesn't want to rotate up here. However, now we've got two natural central midfielders in this position, they're more comfortable to rotate. So as the player has the ball here, we could see this midfielder moving higher. We could see this one rotating deeper, taking this player with him. And now one of our higher inside forwards can drift into the space that we have created in this zone here. And the opposition can't be too aggressive coming to press them and get them in these areas, because we're pinning them back now with our front four, with our two wing backs, our inside forward and our striker. You see how just subtle changes, changing the starting positions whilst using the same formation, completely changes the questions that we ask of the opposition. What we've basically done here is taken the same principles. We are still drawing the opposition onto us in these deeper positions. We are still creating that problem. We are now pinning the opposition more effectively, and we are still playing out from the back. We can still go long if we want to and play on the second ball, or look to get these players attacking fast. We can still do all of those things, but by changing the profiles, we've got a more balanced structure, I would say. We've got players in more natural positions, which means centre-backs at centre-back, midfielders in midfield, which seems logical. We've got the license to potentially play even more attacking profiles in the two wing-back roles, which I think would increase the entertainment, which, as United fans, we all really want to see that, right? We want to see greater entertainment. But also, we've opened up the ability for greater tactical flexibility, players moving into different positions, because we haven't got centre-backs stuck in these zones here. They're now midfielders, players that are comfortable changing and moving into different roles to try and find a space. I think all of these changes, whilst subtle, would make a big difference to Manchester United and that ability to play through the first phase. Of course, it's probably not going to be perfect with the current crop of players. We know that this squad is lacking, shall we say, in a few areas, but I do still think that these changes would help us take steps in the right direction, and then in the summer you can sprinkle in a little bit of extra quality and take Manchester United to that next level. We can keep largely some of the same principles, but just by changing the starting positions, we are now much more threatening. So basically, I think Ruben Amorim has got the right idea. I just think he's trying to achieve it in the wrong way. He's trying to bring more players deeper, but actually I think the solution is to do the opposite, to push more players further forward, to pin the opposition back and allow Manchester United to attack. But those are just my thoughts, my opinions on how we can address this problem. I want to hear what you think in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Does this change make sense? And if so, which players need to come into the Manchester United starting 11? Let me know what you think in the comments. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.